record on this. Okay, we're recording. Okay. I'd like to welcome you all tonight, and we may have some more people jumping in. I'm not sure what, but it's 7:02, so in interest, since you guys are on time and prompt, I'm ready to get started here. I'm going to start off with a couple of disclaimers. I am not a financial planner. I am not a tax attorney or tax accountant. And everything I'm going to share with you tonight is stuff I learned last week at a training session for FAFSA, and their caveat was it may change. Because if you've been following the FAFSA all this year, typically we should have been doing this in October, because typically FAFSA goes live October 1, and you generally want to get filled out during October or November, so that colleges oftentimes have a January or February due date, and it's all done. They were going through a major rewrite on FAFSA this year, compiling, compressing it, so in theory, simplifying it, which I think they accomplished for the most part. And it did not go live until December 31st. Because of that, everything's gotten pushed back, and I would not want to be on the college side right now, because I'm sure the college financial aid people are freaking out. The last I heard, even if you were to go in and complete a FAFSA tonight, it was going to sit in a holding file at FAFSA until February 1. Colleges will not see your data until February 1. So you've got a window here, and colleges are pushing back their deadlines as well, which is good. The other thing is that if you were to go in and do a FAFSA right now and submit it, if you went back the next day and said, oh, I need to make some changes, you cannot change it until February 1. So simply because it's not really been processed, it's just sitting in a hopper somewhere at FAFSA, wherever their office is, it's just sit there until February 1. Once February 1 rolls around, you would be able to go back in and update, make any changes. So if you're doing it now before February 1, you want to make sure all your numbers are good before you hit submit, and then you can go from there. Okay. If at any time, I'm gonna start sharing a screen here in a little bit, and I'm not sure, I'm not real good on following the chat room and all kinds of stuff. So if you have a question, just feel free to jump in. Don't raise your hand. I won't see you, because I'm going to be sharing my screen. Just go ahead and make a comment, ask me a question. I will stop where I'm at. So we are going to jump in and go to the FAFSA. What I'm showing you is actually a prototype FAFSA. This is what they are putting out for counselors to use for training. Okay. And so it is not fully functional. I was told that last week in my training. But where I'm at now assumes that your student has gone in and gotten an FSA ID, a federal student aid ID, and that at least one parent has one. Whether or not both parents need an FSA ID depends on how you answer some of the questions, and I'll be going through that here tonight of what you need to be looking for and be thinking about with that. So here's the prototype FAFSA. This has been started a couple times, and this is the generic test version. I'm going to go in as a parent tonight. So the general recommendation is, simply because you as parents have a much better idea, one, you know all your financial information, and you probably have a very good idea about what your son's financial information is as well. The recommendation is that parents go in and start the FAFSA. That way, and there's a process, you'll see it tonight, you actually would start it, and then you would invite your son to join the FAFSA. Okay. Then the trick is getting them to finish the FAFSA on their end. There's really very little they have to do. Because realistically, you could go in and help them and walk them through and talk them through, because most likely they didn't have a job last year. They probably didn't pay taxes or file a tax form. So that's going to flow very quickly on their side. But we're going to go ahead and launch the FAFSA. Alcina Tran is our parent this year, and we're going to log her in. And so one of the first things you're going to come up with is we are starting a new form. So this will be the way you're doing the very first time. If you've already submitted the FAFSA and you want to come back in and make some changes, you would edit an existing form. But tonight we are starting a new form for 24-25. And then ask, all right, who are you? And this is one of the things they've really gotten very good about this year of, if you've done a FAFSA in the past, it used to have two columns side by side. It was confusing who was doing what. Parents are only going to see parents' information, and students are only going to see student information. So and it always at the top of that tells who is doing this and who you're doing it for. So Alcina is our parent. We're going to continue. And now it's going to ask, who is the student? So it's asking the parent to put in the student information. So let me see. Tran, and she was born 05, 2003. And she has a made-up social security number. And she has an email address. The email address is important. And on this one, I would recommend if your son has a personal email address, use that one. Don't use his MMA account. Use his personal email address, simply because this is going to stay with them over the course of the years. All MMA email addresses do stay active for 5 years after graduation, but it's just a simple way to keep it on one they're going to check all the time. And so we've identified who our student is, their date of birth, their social security number, and email address. And then there are 4 screens that are basically information about the FAFSA. They each have a little video or a little blurb that talks about it. You can go through and view those at your leisure. I am going to pause here on contributors. When it asks about parents, the federal definition, they finally got around clarifying that, I think, this very well. When they're talking about parents, they're talking about biological parents. So there's going to be a question later on, does the student's parents live together? Does bio mom and bio dad live together? That's the definition. If bio mom and bio dad are divorced and remarried, you would answer no, they don't live together. Unless for some reason they both live together and that's a weird situation. So you have to read through that carefully and see what they're asking for there. They say it takes about an hour. Most people I've talked to in the trainings and such are saying 45 minutes to an hour. And then how it processes out later. So then we're asked to verify the information. We've identified Rhea Tran as our student with a social security number. And then ask for a permanent mailing address. And so let's see, my sample, no matter what I put in, is probably, I think, defaults to New York State. That's just where the default is tonight. There we go. So it's going to ask for a mailing address. They're asking for a mailing address. They're going to want to know residency in just a minute. So here they want to know what is the student's state of legal residence and when that student became a resident. And now the personal circumstance questions. These are the questions that are asked that identify and will help determine who exactly needs to fill out the FAFSA. So the other reason I strongly encourage parents to be doing it first is you have a better understanding of how all this works, but there are a number of questions. So first, the student's current marital status. As far as I know, all of your sons are single and never married. And they will all be first-year freshmen. And when they start the 24-25 school year, they will not have their first bachelor's degree. And now we have the particular questions. If your son, or if you can answer yes to any one of these questions, your son will be declared independent, and you as a parent won't have to complete the form. But if you look through the questions, they are not currently serving active duty. They are not a veteran of the armed forces. They are not supporting a child or a spouse more than 50% of the time. Here are a couple that might come in. I know at least one who can answer yes to a couple of these. Have they, since they turned 18, since they turned 13, were they an orphan with no living biological or adoptive parents? Since they turned 13, were they a ward of the court? Since 13, were they in foster care? My wife and I, a number of years ago, adopted a young girl out of the Missouri foster care system. When she turned 13, she was technically a ward of the court. We adopted her later in that 13th year. Had she gone on to college, she would have answered yes to that one. And if she'd gone on to college, the only financial information presented would have been hers. The student is a legally emancipated minor, as determined by a court in the state, or they're in legal guardianship with someone other than a parent or step-parent, as determined by their state of residence. If you can't answer yes to any of these for your son, you have to mark the none of these apply, which means that they are a dependent student and they're going to be asking information from you. A couple other special questions. Were they unaccompanied or at risk of being homeless? No. A couple other special circumstances that might prevent parents from contacting parents. Basically, they're asking, are they in a home situation where it's dangerous for them physically to contact parents? No. And then, are the parents unwilling to provide their information, but none of the other previous circumstances apply? If you were to answer yes to this and say, I'm just not going to tell my son any of the information, the only financial aid they will qualify for is an unsubsidized loan. So the fact that you guys are all here tonight indicates to me that you're willing to share that information with your sons, and so you would mark no, because you are willing to share. And now they're to ask for parents' information. And some of this is pre-filled already because this is information you have put in when you signed up for your FSA ID number. So they already know your name, your date of birth, your social security number, your email address, and your permanent mailing address. I just realized they put in 123 Sesame Street, and we all go back to Sesame Street. I was commenting earlier about the whole willingness of IRS and FAFSA to talk to each other. It's almost become the default, and yes, you have to do it this way to make it work. Basically, there's a bunch of legal gobbledygook here of what you're about to do, but what it comes down to is, do you consent for IRS to talk to FAFSA? And for simplicity's sake, you don't want to say yes because it takes most of your work away, because you're going to go back to reach out to your previous year's tax form and pull the numbers automatically for you. If you say no or decline this approval, you will have to input all those numbers yourself, and it may slow down the whole process in regards to applying for financial aid. So if by all means at all possible, you're going to mark approved to this one. And now there's some demographic questions about you as a parent. So what is the parent's current marital status? Keep in mind here, the definition of parent is biological mom and biological dad. So I'm going to go make it easy here. We're going to start with biological mom and dad, not separated. So mom and dad are married, they're living together, and there's no separation or divorce or remarriage. And how you answer that question then is, who needs to fill out the FAFSA? And here's one of those tricky parts. The sample, the prototype that I'm showing you here, asked for the parent's information. As I understand it, if it's a married couple filing jointly, that shouldn't be asking for it. But again, there's a bug in it. They haven't, at least in the prototype, they have not fixed that yet. And so we're where you have to put in a spouse's name here, and then that spouse would also have to have a FAFSA, FSA ID. And then email address. And then send an invite. So from what I've been told and understood, if one parent who's starting this process has their FSA ID and you're in a situation where it's a married couple living together, filing jointly, you won't have to invite the other partner or the spouse. If you filed separately, you would have to invite the other partner so that both partners can share, or both spouses can share that financial information back with with FAFSA. So I'll just get a heads up, as you get to that question, it may look different from what I'm showing you tonight, but this is just what we have on the prototype. And then there's a question about state of legal residence. And the default here is for New York, and that they became a resident, so there's some default stuff that just put in. And then there's some questions about parents' financial information, because there might be some special circumstances on the parent's side. Particularly if your family is receiving, or anytime during the 2022 or 2023 year, did your family receive any of these federal programs? Earned income tax credit, federal housing, free or reduced school lunch. The tricky one on free or reduced school lunch, if your son here is your only child, we don't give free or reduced lunch, but they may actually be eligible for it based on family income. So that's one you might have to look into. If you're on Medicaid, some qualifying health plans, SNAP, SSI, WIC, things like that. If none of those apply, you mark none of these apply, and we move on. Here's another one. When you filled out your taxes back in April or prior to April, you had to say how many people were in your household, how many dependents you had. The definition for FAFSA could be slightly different. So maybe you have an older child who's off at college, and they're pretty much on their own, and you don't count them because they're living on their own, and they filed their own taxes. But if you're providing more than half the support to anybody, you can count them. So it's asking here, does your family size, you didn't ask for family size. Okay. Does the family size differ from the number of individuals claimed on your 2022 tax return? If the number is the same, you mark no, there's no difference. If it's yes, it's going to ask, who else are you supporting? So you want to take a look at everybody you're supporting, more than half. It could be other children, it could be elderly parents, it could be aunts and uncles who live in the home with you, it could be other individuals, but they're asking how many people are you basically supporting here? And in our case, it's no. And then how many people in the family will be in college during the school year, not counting parents? And in our sample case, it is 1. And now here's the tax information return. Since you gave authorization for IRS and FAFSA to talk to each other, a number of these numbers should be filled in. Not all of them, because not all these are known on your on your 1040. Number 1, just into IRA rollovers, and we're just gonna put in 0 for all these. A pension rollover to an IRA. The third one here, amount of college grant scholarships or AmeriCorps benefits reported as income by the parent. So this is not counting the cadet who's applying or any other children, but this would be in your case that you received a college grant or a scholarship that you had to report as income. And that's actually a fairly rare case. The student might have to report that next year. For example, one of my daughters received a scholarship above and beyond what her tuition cost. And that extra cost above tuition had to be reported as income to the IRS. So her sophomore, junior, senior year, she had to put a number in here to report that income. Foreign earned income exclusion, it's a 0. Amount of child support received is 0. Total current of cash, checkings, and savings accounts, not including financial aid. So what do you have on hand in cash, savings, and checking accounts? I'm just making up numbers here.
Question on that.
Yes.
So if you're filling it out, like if I'm filling it out, and then the other parent is also going to fill it out because you've sent an invitation to them to fill it out. Do you put all the numbers in one spot here, or how does that work?
If both parents are having to put in numbers, what I would recommend, if it's a jointly held account, split it down the middle and give half to each parent.
Okay.
If it's an account held in one name or the other, you would then apportion it and prorate it based upon their actual holdings. So if, for example, if I was doing this for my wife and I, since we have all of our accounts are joint accounts, I would just take the number we have there in total cash and split it between the two of us. If she had her own accounts for her own special sewing and craft work account that she want to spend money on, and I had my bicycle account that I want to spend money on, we would then list those separately.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Current net worth investments, including real estate. Keep in mind, this does not include, so you do not count the value of your primary home where you live in. If you have a second home or rental homes or other investments, but not in retirement accounts. So they do not look at retirement accounts or the home you live in. What other investments do you have? And then current net worth of business and investment farms. This is a change from previous years. It used to be that people who are in families who are in agriculture would not report the net value of a family farm. They've changed that. I'm not sure how that's going to affect everything this year, but that's a big change that is out there for this year. So net worth of a parent business and or for-profit agricultural operations.
So we have a quick question about that. So
yes.
If it is something that is not solely owned, but owned with another member of the family, how does that work? That's not part of our household. How does that work? How do you report that?
Good question.
So it's a family business, but we're not all within the same household, right?
Yeah.
They have their family, we have our family, but they're still connected in that sense.
My initial thought, and I'm going to give you two answers to this. My initial thought is it would be a prorated amount of if you and the other family member, not your direct family, the other family member are equal partners in the business, then it'd be the net worth is half the value for your family. My other suggestion though is reach out to the college that you're looking at or the college your son is looking at and ask them for guidance on that question. And the one other caveat I have is I am getting emails on a daily basis from college and financial aid offices saying we are having FAFSA sessions, we're having FAFSA training. If you have questions about FAFSA, direct your kids to us. So colleges are out there knowing that people are struggling with this. They have people they're the ones who are making the decisions, making the calls. That's an excellent resource to reach out to as well.
I just don't remember them going so deep into
this one question is a big new one.
Yeah. Mm.
It's a new one for FAFSA. If you've never, the other program that's out there is called the CSS profile.
Mhm.
Some selective schools and I'm actually seeing more schools require it this year, is a lot more, I'll call it invasive and intrusive. Want to know what the value of your home, or what kind of car you
Wow.
drive.
Mhm.
And so it gets a lot more invasive, but that's the nature of the schools that generally require the CSS profile. That's part of their nature as well.
Mm.
So my general, I have filled the CSS profile out one time because my first daughter, her freshman year, the college did not take FAFSA, and they did this, asked for the CSS profile, and then the next year they wrote their own program that looked like FAFSA, and they just did it all in house. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so
That's a lot.
yeah, it
Okay,
was. So
okay.
I'm just gonna put in 0 here and continue. And that's it. So you can now go back and check all your answers to see if everything comes down, and then so personal identifiers, demographics, financials. The only thing we haven't done yet is section 3 signature. And it says that I've shared with one other person, Bob Tran, the husband or the spouse, and that invitation has been sent, and he will then be doing it as well. I go continue. The parent agreed that I've given all accurate information, and that on my tax, and that you can check my taxes. I click the box, click sign, and that's all the parent. That's what the parent has to do. The next thing will happen is they'll get an email saying you've done your part, and then you need to follow up with your son to make sure they're doing their part. I was actually to have a session with all the seniors last Monday on MLK Day, but because of weather and everything else, and technology issues in the building, I couldn't do that. I plan to have some sessions during the day and some evenings, probably in the next week or so, impressing upon them how important it is to be listening to you and be ready to do this, and then answering any questions as they get ready to do their part, work through. So that's basically a walk through the parent part. I'm going to flip through. Let's see. I'm going to flip through. I'm just going to show you the on the student side, and you will notice it looks very similar. They also are going to start a new form. They are a student. They get the same 4 screens of overview of information about the FAFSA and who has to contribute, and who is a parent, how long will this take, and process for submitting. And then verify their information, which is when they applied for their FSA ID, it's all downloaded for them, pre-filled already. Again, the state of legal residence, when do they become a resident? And then here, they are asked that question, do they provide consent for the IRS to talk to FAFSA? I was talking to the people I was trained by, and I've talked to a couple of cadets here already. They still need to mark approve. Even if they didn't make any money and didn't file taxes last year, they should still mark approve, because then it'll reach out, FAFSA will reach out to IRS. IRS will say there is no tax history. That person never filed taxes, and it will verify that there is no tax form out there for them. Okay, so the students, even if they didn't file, still need to say they approve the consent for sharing that information. They come up with the same personal circumstances screen, identify they're single or what their marital status is. Again, they're all single. They're going to be first year freshmen. They do not have a bachelor's degree. Again, they'll go through and We do have one, maybe two students who are gonna be able to mark one of these questions, but most students are gonna mark none of these apply. They're not homeless or in danger of becoming homeless. There are no special circumstances that mean that they are they're not refugees, they're not asylums, they're not victims of human trafficking, they're not none of their parents, your parents are not incarcerated, they know where you live, they can contact you and locate you. So no special circumstances. And here it says you are a dependent student. Again, they're gonna mark no, meaning that their parents will be able to contribute and provide information. And now here's where they're gonna ask, is the parent, biological or adoptive parent, married to each other? And they're gonna say yes. And then, so they have to provide parent information for both parents. And again, here's where it's supposedly is to ask, it should only ask for one parent. But in the demo, it's asking for both parents, although it's listed as optional. I've not tried. I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna provide one here and see what happens. Okay, let me do that. Okay. Then student demographics. So a lot of this looks very similar. It's the same basic as to what was on your side. They're identified as male. I wonder if lots of people are doing demonstration like this. It's very slow. Okay, this asked. These are race and ethnicity questions, which are optional questions. They do not affect or impact student aid eligibility, and they are not shared with the schools to which the student applies. So it's up to you completely as to how you want to have your son answer these. I'm good. I'm picky. I always say prefer not to know, prefer not to answer. It does ask the student's citizenship status. In order to be eligible for financial aid, they have to be a U.S. citizen or a nationalized citizen or an eligible non-citizen. If your son, and that's, I actually sent out this email for this evening session only to our parents of students I know are U.S. citizens or eligible, possibly eligible for FAFSA. If your son were not a citizen, they wouldn't be eligible for federal student aid. They could still be eligible for college aid. And at that point, my recommendation to all of our international students is that they should be talking to the college and see if the college has a form they want them to fill out to apply for institutional aid, but they're not going to be eligible for federal aid. But in our case, our student is a U.S. citizen. Is going to ask for parental education level. And basically what they're looking for here is they're looking for first generation students. Did neither parent attend college, one or both attended but didn't complete, or one or both parents completed college? That information is sent on to colleges because there are a number of first gen programs and some first gen scholarships out there. Parent killed in the line of duty since 9/11, a member of the armed forces, or as a public safety officer. There are some scholarships out there for those people as well. High school completion status. When they graduate from high school, what's their status going in? They will have a high school diploma. And then from what high school did they or will they graduate? Here's one where the only possible answer on my prototype is in New York. And everyone who's doing the prototype graduated from the same school. That's getting slow on me tonight. Don't go slow.
Mr. Roundey, I have a few questions. I just
Yes.
didn't want to interrupt you,
Go ahead.
but since we're kind of slowing down. So my son got accepted into the Citadel, and we got an email from them that said, submit your FAFSA. It has a link, and then it says our school code is 003423.
Okay. I think I'm frozen up here, but I'm just going to answer your question here. The students that are doing demographics, they're going to do the same financial questions that the parent did. Number 4 here is colleges. It asks, where would you like to have your FAFSA scores sent? And students can select up to 20 colleges. And they can either input it by using the FAFSA code that your son was given, or they don't know the FAFSA code, they can just put in the name of the school and it will generate that code automatically to know where the FAFSA results should be sent. So if they want to apply, if they want them sent to more than 20 schools, wait till put in the 20 they want. After February 1, once all has been processed, they can go back in and take out a couple and put in some different ones. But as far as I know, none of our guys are applying to more than 20 schools.
Yeah, I think he's narrowed it down.
Yeah.
I have a secondary question too, regarding the parents' biological. So not married.
Mhm.
Would it be the primary parent's information then that would go in there?
Okay, the way they work, the way, so the question they're looking for, if it's a parent not married, so parents are not married, who provides 51% of support for the student? Okay, and I've had this happen a couple times. I've had parents come back and say, well, in our divorce decree, we each provide half. Well, then the question is, who pays for the health insurance? Who pays for the car insurance? I doubt in most cases that's which one parent or the other covers most of those costs. So, and if it really is truly one parent or the other, then you just have to pick one parent.
Okay, and then so let's say it's me as a primary, and my income tax returns were filed jointly with my husband, who is not a biological. But we just recently been divorced, so my tax returns are going to show income way higher than what it actually will be moving forward. When you select share with IRS, do they tease that out, or how? I'm just worried that
what you'll have to do is, as the question that I asked about your current marital status, you'll have to, and there's talked about what was it at the time taxes were filed. So you'll have to answer the question as it was at the time it was filed. And then your spouse, or now your former spouse, would have to be listed, and that information would get pulled in, but then you would reach out to the college and say, since that time has happened, we've been divorced, and that party is no longer in support, is no longer supporting, or his finances should no longer be considered. So,
okay.
So colleges have the authority to basically kind of override what FAFSA is going to give them. And so what you want to do, if there's been any kind of extenuating circumstance, we're frozen up here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, because what comes up next is pretty much the same. So if there's been any kind of extenuating circumstances, a loss of job, a change of jobs with a change in income, change of household situation, death of a spouse or divorce, any kind of that stuff that has happened since that taxes were filed back in April, you'll still have to do whatever was as the situation was in April of 2022, or 2023 rather, but contact the college and let them know, hey, here's what happened since then. And they may say, all right, provide us a copy of the divorce decree or a copy of the death certificate. They'll ask for whatever documentation they want to help verify that's the current situation. And colleges realize that the family situations change, and they'll take that into account.
Okay, great. I knew I was gonna probably have to show some proof of that, and I just
Yeah.
was figuring, like, with the form and the way you were rolling it out, I'm like, I don't see a field for that. So,
It's not in the FAFSA itself. It's at the college level.
So can I ask you, I'm sorry to interject,
Oh, no
just
problem.
because I'm listening to her question, but what is the deadline of the FAFSA?
Okay. Here's where it gets interesting. You will want to reach a lot of schools have always said that February 1 was their deadline. And obviously they're saying, well, that's not going to happen this year because
Yeah,
the government didn't release it. You don't want to reach out to two different groups of people. One, the state in which you live, because every state has aid for people who may qualify, who may become Pell eligible or whatever, for their deadlines. Missouri used to be February, it has always been February 1. They've just announced they're bumping back to March 1. And I'm hearing from a lot of colleges are bumping back to March 1 as well, especially since they know they're not going to receive data until February 1 the way it is. So what you want to do is reach out to the financial aid offices of the colleges your sons are applying to, that you're going to send information to, and ask, what is your deadline? And my guess is you probably won't even have to make a phone call. You probably just go straight to the website and look it up. It's going to be posted somewhere there big. Having said that, though, you do want to get it done and processed the sooner the better.
okay. I was asking that because I was listening to what she was saying and I'm like, but wait a minute, are they only wanting your taxes for the previous year? And depending on the deadline, depends on what your taxes will read, right?
Well,
That's why I was
the
asking.
tax form they're actually going to be looking at is what you filed last April. So of
Yep.
April 2022,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
and in the financial aid world, that's now called, it used to be FAFSA was done in the spring and you had to have your taxes done before you could file the FAFSA.
Right.
It's October and they do what's called prior year. So you're you're looking at a tax form for the prior year, which is really the prior year. So you really look at what did I do in 2022 are the numbers they're looking at. So, and you look at numbers that are 1.5 to 2 years old now. And so they realize that college realize things change. And so
Yeah.
that's where you want to reach out to them. And those financial aid people are going to be some of your best friends of, hey, here's the situation, change your job, change the situation, whatever it might be. You'll want to reach out to them and talk with them.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions out there tonight?
I have one more question, Mr. Roundey, and I'm sorry.
No problem.
Connor's applied for the ROTC scholarship, and I'm hoping he gets a 4-year and covers it all. But I've heard that they're not that liberal with the 4-year; they're more liberal with the 3-year. And the folks at Citadel, when we were there for the overnight recently, said that they're really good at helping cover the 4th year when the scholarship doesn't cover the whole thing. How do you know when, since you do this for a living, do you know when it's typical for that to be announced, and then how that will impact this process?
Okay. So let me go, I'll roll back. I'll give you sort of the whole timeline going forward here. The plan, from what I've been hearing from FAFSA and from colleges, somewhere between now and March 1st or so, you're going to have completed your FAFSA. It will been submitted. Colleges will receive their information, and then they're going to start sending out financial aid award letters. Typically, that happens starting in mid to late February into March. Bump it back about a month. So we're going to be looking at mid-March into early April for sending out financial aid award letters. Okay. And I actually did a thing with Mr. Schaefer's not teaching a life skills class, and I did a thing with his life skills class kids on how to read a financial aid award letter. I'm also do that with all of our seniors as well, just so they have that information. But basically, you're trying to compare apples to apples, and none of the forms will look alike because there is no standardized form. You may end up with 4 or 5 financial aid award letters, and they all look completely different. The same information's there, but you got to find it. So that's your next process to take that and decide what's the best financial aid package. If you have, I'll tell you right now, if you have questions about that, feel free to let me know. I don't have all the answers. I've not seen everyone that's out there, but I'm more than willing to sit down if you know, and take a look at what you've got and, try to help you work through and pull the numbers and see what they're showing and how that all works out. And then on the student side, May 1 has always been sort of college decision day. We celebrate here. We have all the seniors wear a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or something for the college they're going to the following year. That is still pretty much set in stone. The colleges like to know by May 1, but they also realize, especially with late decisions on financial aid, that may not happen. If your son has not made their decision by May 1, make sure they are in contact with all their schools, let them know, hey, I'm looking between a couple schools and I haven't made my decision yet, and then try to get that done as soon as possible in there. In regards to ROTC scholarships, those are usually announced late April and into early May. I know over the last couple of years, that's about when we've heard about them as well. And I know we know about them before graduations. We've invited people from the schools to come to make presentations to our cadets and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
So I have one last question. I'm sorry. So if we are sort of hoping and trying to get our son to do one more year,
Okay.
he's not hearing it right now, but so we sort of backed off a little bit. Just from a maturity, we just think he needs more time because he's just coming there his senior year. And we don't want him to waste his college opportunity. But right now, he's not trying to hear that. And so we want to prepare him either way. So if he wants to try to go into college into fall, is this something we really should be doing right now? Or
I would play, I'll give you a prime example. My youngest daughter, well, actually number 4, so our adopted daughter was youngest. Our number 4 daughter was born in November. So she was really young for her grade level. And we got to but she had 3 older sisters and she was always trying to keep up with all, that whole keep up with the older sister thing. And at the start of what she thought was her senior year, we said, you know what, you're young. How about we plan on taking a gap year? We will send you off to Minnesota to live with grandma and grandpa for the year. You can hang out with grandpa in his hangar, learn how to weld, do all kinds of fun things with grandpa. He was a tinkerer. And she thought that was a great idea. Spring of her senior year, we went to visit a college where her older sister was, and she plays viola. And she took her viola, she auditioned for the viola teacher. And the viola teacher told us, all of my violas are graduating this year, and we're putting scholarship money into violas next year. And we said, sorry, gap year's gone, you're going next year. Because the following year, there wouldn't be any money for violas. So, but we had done the paperwork, we had processed everything just in case.
Okay.
My recommendation to you would be assume he's going next fall. And if he's, at any time between now and August 15th or the 1st of September, whatever school starts, you can always contact the school and say, hey, I decided not to come this year. Please defer my admissions for a year. And most schools will defer an admission. Sometimes they'll even defer a scholarship offer. And then you just do it again next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem at all.
Perfect. Well, that's good to know. So no matter, okay, great.
No matter what, do
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gives them options too, and gives you guys options as well.
And at the very least, this is practice, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, okay. I really want him to take that life skills class. It was no room for him, but I totally want him to take it. So, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other, we're coming up on 7:51. Any other questions for me this evening?
I have one. This is
Yes.
Susie, the non-camera person. I've been encouraging my son to consider the community college.
Yes.
And to go there for a year or two, and then to go off to, the bigger college. So, this might be more than what you can share right now, but when you are filling it out, I saw the questions in the beginning that said, you're a freshman or you've already been to college, is it pretty much the same process in the future? And
All FAFSA is asking is basically, have you ever, what year of college are you, or have you gotten your first bachelor's degree? So if he's going to, if you plan on going to a community college, you put, I'm a freshman, just first year people at a community college are still freshmen. And so it would still all look the same. There wouldn't be any difference at all. He doesn't have a bachelor's degree. He's a first year college student, which is a freshman. And then, I'm trying to think, McCarts, where's home for you?
Overland Park, Kansas.
So
Johnson County Community College is what
okay.
I'm encouraging.
Do you happen to know, is he, I'll use the example here in Missouri. We have the A+ scholarship. And
oh yeah,
in order to apply for A+, you have to do the FAFSA, because the A+ actually was called a last dollar scholarship. So you fill out the FAFSA, go to a community college, and whatever merit scholarship they give you, whatever need-based scholarship they give you, if there's anything left, A+ fills in the end. So so some people will say, well, I didn't get much out of A+. Well, you didn't need much, so they didn't give you much. And some people have lots of need, and they get more.
and can you remind me, does the A+ scholarship mean that you've graduated with good grades?
There is a GPA minimum, and I don't recall what it is right off the top of my head. Mrs. Newbrow is our A+ coordinator, so she has all that information. So if you shoot her an email, she could tell you where things are at and what those numbers are.
Okay, I can look into that too.
Okay.
All right,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions, folks, tonight?
Not
Okay.
us.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I invited about 25 people. I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up, but hey, four is better than none. And have a good evening and try to stay warm. And it will get warmer eventually. So
We can only hope.
it will eventually, sometime in June or July. And
Yeah, exactly.
Well, really, Missouri and Kansas City is where we try to run to get 10 degrees warmer. We can't even get that there. It's bad.
Not lately.
It's rough. It's rough. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.